Hello and welcome to episode 21 of my trip down memory lane back to the Pacific Crest Trail and my Thru-hike from exactly 10 years ago. In the last episode we arrived at Timberline Lodge where we basically camped in the garden and enjoyed that fantastic breakfast buffet in the morning. In the afternoon we hung out in the ski lodge a bit, ran into a few people again including the Holzschuhs, the people that we had met on the very first day, and later in the early evening we set off again. It was still raining quite heavily, so we couldn't see Mount Hood, but as you see here, later we would get to enjoy this incredible mountain. First though, we hiked out and the next day we reached a real highlight, Ramona Falls, a beautiful waterfall that cascades down the mountain in, many cascades so to say. This is another spot that isn't directly on the PCT, but is just a short detour of maybe 800 meters or so. You don't even have to backtrack, you can make a loop and return to the trail at another point. And I always wonder why the trail doesn't just go that way, because the waterfall is so stunning. Yeah, but it doesn't. So we hiked over there, checked it out, took a short break, and it's one of those waterfalls that I remember very well. And another one of those appears later in this episode. The stage from Timberline Lodge to Cascade Locks is kind of short, so it's not much of a hike, but there are some real highlights along the way. Among them, we finally got to see Mount Hood, this spectacular mountain. I think it's one of the most aesthetically pleasing mountains I've ever seen. A true picture-perfect mountain with its glacier and the snow-capped peak, and it's just an imposing presence. It's also a very high mountain. I'm not sure, it's something about 4,000 meters or something. But walking along with Mount Hood in your mind and thinking about that, you could have seen it already all the time from Timberline Lodge and other places on the trail, and being kind of annoyed to have missed it, and then suddenly it emerged from the clouds, standing there, and that was an amazing feeling, seeing the sheer power of this mountain right at your feet. It's just mind-blowing. And I've said it before in another episode, for me that's what Oregon was all about, these amazing, isolated, single mountains with their magnificent peaks. And I really enjoyed that. I took a ton of pictures of Mount Hood, and I have selected only 2 here that are particularly beautiful. And here we also see the autumn colors again. I really love fall foliage in general. And the term Indian summer is obviously associated with USA, and even in Europe this is a term that people know. And I was excited to witness it myself. First here in Oregon and later in full glory in Washington. Next, we move on to Washington via the Eagle Creek Trail. Eagle Creek Trail is one of the most famous trails in the region, and in my opinion one of the most spectacular and beautiful on the entire West Coast area. It's again not part of the PCT, and that's just crazy. The PCT runs roughly parallel but through unremarkable terrain, while Eagle Creek offers breathtaking scenery, a canyon-like area with tropical flora not found elsewhere in the region, and it's truly unique, a natural wonder, so to say. And every PCT hiker chooses Eagle Creek instead of the main PCT because it's so much more beautiful. But let's now hike this part of the trail. Let's hike these last meters in Oregon, ending at Cascade Locks, where we will enter Washington. Yeah, Tunnel Falls is one of the most famous spots on the PCT, even though it isn't directly on it, like Crater Lake, for example. Every PCT hiker knows Tunnel Falls and looks forward to it. Walking through a tunnel behind a waterfall is something special, absolutely incredible. And I don't know the exact height, it's maybe around 40 meters, 50 meters, something, but it drops straight down and it's just fantastic. I loved Eagle Creek very much. The flora, the ferns, the moss. It felt almost like being in a rainforest. And, it was very wet, but fascinating with plants we hadn't seen before. Unfortunately, I think it burned down the year after we were there due to a massive forest fire. And I can only hope it has somehow recovered. This place remains one of the most memorable of the entire trail. To me. Arriving at Cascade Locks, you see the Bridge of the Gods in the background, the famous painted bridge pillar here. And we set up camp there, and I treated myself to a giant ice cream. And this was our final day in Oregon and another state completed, which was incredible feeling to finish another state after spending so long in California. It felt like Oregon was over in just about 2 weeks, although it took us 5 weeks in total, but it went so quickly. And we didn't continue into Washington immediately, but we went to Portland first for the Faerieworlds festival, which also no longer exists, but at the time it featured some European bands I already knew from Germany, which made it feel kind of like home. I had spent a lot of time in a German medieval scene back then, so I saw a lot of familiar bands on this festival, and that was kind of nice. We camped in the middle of the forest here, which of course was very nice, but nothing special after hiking thousands of miles on the PCT. But it was very idyllic, beautifully decorated, nicely lit at night, with amazing music. And as a live music fan, it was just wonderful to experience that again. Another thing, it took us about a week off the trail, and the festival, I think, lasted for 4 days, and while we arrived a bit early at Cascade Locks, so it was a week total that we didn't hike. And when we were at the festival, there was some heavy rain during one of the days, and that apparently hit all of Washington, and it extinguished all the fires that had been raging across Washington. Many parts of the trail had been closed, and hikers were unsure whether they could continue. Some even gave up, and the rain allowed us to resume our hike safely, which was just perfect timing. We also thought, what are we going to do? Do we have to just stop because so much of the trail is not hikeable at the moment? Do we have to move to the coast and hike there? But after this week off, the entire trail was open again, and it was just perfect. We hitched back from Portland to Cascade Locks, funnily with a guy. He picked us up, and I didn't even recognize him at first because he had grown a beard, and it was an elderly man that we met on the very first day on the PCT. And I saw him maybe 2 or 3 times after that, right at the beginning, and then I never saw him again. And as it turned out, he had to quit after a few hundred miles due to an injury. But it was so funny and so amazing to, by coincidence, meet him again so far into the journey, and that was just very, very nice. And when we returned to Cascade Locks, we also ran into Holzschuhs again, the guys we met at day 1, and saw each other multiple times during the entire trail. And it just so happened that we were at Cascade Locks on the same day, and I'm gonna spoil the rest of the trail. We decided to finish it together. But that's for the next episode, when we take our first steps into Washington. And until then, as always, subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and see you in the next video. Bye!